The lights on the bridge of the USS Defiance flickered as the ship moved through space. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the stars pass by on the main screen. His crew worked quietly at their stations, checking systems, and monitoring the ship's path through the unknown sector. "Captain," called Lisa Hayes from the communications station. Her voice carried excitement. "I'm picking up something strange." Jake turned toward her. "What kind of strange?" Lisa pressed her earpiece closer. "It's a transmission, sir. Very weak. I think it might be a distress signal." The bridge became quiet. Jake stood up and walked to Lisa's station. "Can you clean it up?" "Working on it now, sir." Lisa's fingers moved quickly across her controls. Static filled the speakers before slowly clearing. A voice came through, speaking in a language none of them understood. "Computer, translate," Jake ordered. The ship's AI processed the signal. After a few seconds, a translation appeared on the main screen. Jake read it aloud. "This is the Veltar. Colony ship Gentle Current. We are under attack. Our ship is damaged. We need help. Please respond." The message repeated several times before cutting to static. "Where is it coming from?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her readings. 3 days away at maximum warp, sir. The signal is very old. Maybe 2 weeks. Jake walked back to his chair. "Get me Admiral Sullivan." The main screen changed to show Admiral Kate Sullivan on the bridge of her flagship. She was a tall woman, with gray hair and sharp eyes. "What do you have, Jake?" "We picked up a distress signal from an alien species called the Veltar. Their colony ship was attacked." Kate's expression grew serious. "Send me everything you have." Jake nodded to Lisa, who transmitted the data. Kate studied the information on her screen. "I'm calling a fleet meeting. All senior officers to the Defiance in 1 hour." The conference room filled with the human fleet's top officers. Jake recognized them all. Commander Ryan Brooks from Tactical looked worried. Dr. Amy Carter, the chief medical officer, sat with her tablet ready. Colonel Steve Parker, the Marine commander, leaned back in his chair with his arms crossed. Kate stood at the head of the table. "The Veltar signal tells us they were attacked by something called the Korthik Swarm. Computer, display the message." The alien voice filled the room again. When the translation finished, Dr. Carter spoke first. "They mention wounded crew members. We should respond. What do we know about these Korthik?" Colonel Parker asked. Jake activated another part of the message. "The Veltar described them as raiders. They say the Korthik have been attacking trade routes for decades. They call them unstoppable." Commander Brooks studied the data. "The Veltar ship readings show they're stranded on a planet. Their engines are down, and they can't leave." Kate looked around the table. "The nearest Veltar world is 6 months away. We're the only ones who can help them." "What about the Korthik?" Ryan asked. "If they're still in the area, we could be walking into a trap. The signal is 2 weeks old," Jake said. "The attack might be over." Dr. Carter leaned forward. "Even if the Korthik are gone, the Veltar might still need medical help. We can't just leave them." Kate nodded. "I agree, but we need to be careful. This is our first contact with alien life. We don't know what we're dealing with." Colonel Parker straightened up. "My Marines are ready for anything, Admiral." "Good. Jake, how long to reach them?" 3 days at full speed." Kate made her decision. "We respond. The entire fleet moves out in 2 hours. Jake, your ship takes point. Ryan, I want battle plans ready in case the Korthik are still there." The officers began to leave, but Kate stopped them. "Remember, this is first contact. We represent all of humanity. Let's make it count." Jake returned to his bridge and ordered the fleet to change course. The 30 human ships turned toward the Veltar signal. As they entered warp, Jake wondered what they would find. Lisa continued to monitor the alien frequency. "Captain, I'm getting more of their transmissions. The computer is learning their language." "What are they saying?" "They're scared, sir. They keep talking about how dangerous their planet is. They say it's killing them." Jake frowned. "Killing them how?" "The weather, sir. They mentioned storms and temperature changes. And something about the air being too thick." Dr. Carter, who had stayed on the bridge, looked up from her tablet. "That's odd. Their planet readings look normal to me. Almost like Earth. Maybe they're not used to Earth-type worlds," Jake suggested. "The fleet traveled through space for 3 days. During that time, Lisa decoded more Veltar messages. The aliens seemed terrified of everything about their situation. They talked about the planet's gravity being too strong, the air being too heavy, and the storms being too violent. "They sound really fragile," Lisa observed. Dr. Carter agreed. "Their medical readings suggest they come from a much calmer world. Low gravity, stable weather, thin atmosphere." On the 3rd day, they reached the Veltar system. The planet appeared on the main screen, blue and green with white clouds. To the humans, it looked beautiful and familiar. "Looks like home," Ryan commented. Jake ordered the fleet to approach slowly. "Lisa, try to contact them." "Veltar ship, this is the human fleet. We received your distress signal. Are you still there?" Static filled the speakers. Then a weak voice answered. "Humans, you came? We thought no one would help us." "We're here now," Jake replied. "What's your situation?" "We are dying on this terrible world. Our ship cannot fly. The Quarthet destroyed our engines before they left. This planet is too dangerous for our people." Jake looked at the peaceful world on his screen. To him, it looked like a vacation spot. "We're sending rescue teams down." "Hold on." As the human fleet moved into orbit, Jake wondered what kind of beings they were about to meet. The Veltar sounded. Scared of everything. What would they think of humans, who came from a world much like the one that terrified them? The rescue mission was about to begin, and Jake had a feeling it would change everything. Commander Ryan Brooks checked his shuttle's instruments as they descended toward the planet. The world below looked peaceful, with green forests and blue oceans. Light clouds drifted across the surface, and gentle rain fell in some areas. "Looks nice down there," said Marine Sergeant Tony Garcia from the co-pilot's seat. "The Veltar sure don't think so," Ryan replied. "They keep calling it a death world." The shuttle landed in a clearing near the crashed alien ship. Ryan could see the Veltar vessel through the window. It was sleek and silver, but one side was badly damaged. Smoke rose from several holes in the hull. "Everyone ready?" Ryan asked his team. The Marines nodded. They wore standard combat gear and carried medical supplies. Tony opened the shuttle door, and they stepped outside. The air felt fresh and clean. A light breeze carried the scent of flowers and growing things. Birds sang in the nearby trees. To the humans, it felt like a perfect spring day. "Where are they?" Tony asked, looking around. Ryan checked his scanner. "The life signs are coming from inside their ship. Let's go." They walked toward the Veltar vessel. As they got closer, Ryan noticed something odd. The ship's hull was barely damaged. What looked like serious damage from space was actually just surface scratches and small dents. "This doesn't look too bad," Tony observed. "We could probably fix this in a few hours." Ryan nodded. "Let's see what's wrong with the crew first." They found an airlock on the undamaged side of the ship. Ryan knocked on the metal door. A voice came from inside, speaking in the Veltar language. Ryan's translator changed it to English. "Please help us. We are too weak to open the door." Tony looked at Ryan in surprise. "Too weak to open a door?" Ryan activated his translator. "This is Commander Brooks of the human fleet. We're here to help." Can you tell us how to open this door? There is a panel beside the door. Touch the blue. Light. Ryan found the panel and pressed the blue button. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Cool air flowed out of the ship. The first thing Ryan noticed was how cold it was inside. The second thing was how quiet. The third thing was the smell of fear. "Hello," Ryan called out. "We're here to help." A figure appeared in the hallway. Ryan tried not to stare. The Veltar was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was tall and thin, with pale skin that seemed to glow. Its bones looked fragile, like those of a bird. Large eyes filled most of its face, and its hands shook as it moved. "You are the humans?" the alien asked in a weak voice. "Yes, I'm Commander Brooks. This is Sergeant Garcia. We have medical supplies and can help repair your ship." The Veltar's eyes grew even wider. "You came down to the surface? In this terrible environment?" Ryan looked around. The planet seemed fine to him. "It's not so bad. Actually, it's quite nice." The alien seemed shocked. "Nice? This world is trying to kill us. The gravity is too strong. The air is too thick. The storms are too violent. We have lost 3 of our people already." Tony stepped forward. "Where are your wounded? We have a doctor." The Veltar led them deeper into the ship. Ryan noticed that the alien moved very slowly and carefully. It seemed afraid of everything around it. They entered a room where several more Veltar lay on beds. They all looked sick and weak. One of them tried to sit up when the humans entered, but immediately fell back down. "I am Ambassador Zithve," the sitting alien said. "You must be very brave to come to this death world." Ryan activated his communicator. "Dr. Carter, we've made contact. I'm sending you our location." The Veltar seemed to be in medical distress. Dr. Carter's voice came through clearly. "On my way, Commander. What are their symptoms?" Ryan looked at the aliens. They seem very weak. They say the planet is too dangerous for them. Within minutes, Dr. Carter arrived with her medical team. She looked around the Veltar ship with professional interest. "I'm Dr. Carter," she said to Ambassador Zethver. "Can you tell me what's wrong?" The ambassador's voice was barely a whisper. "The gravity on this world is crushing us. The air burns our lungs. The pressure changes with the weather hurt our bodies. 3 of our people have already died." "Doctor." Carter took out her medical scanner and began examining the aliens. After a few minutes, she looked confused. "Commander, can I speak with you privately?" Ryan followed her to a corner of the room. "What is it, Doc?" "These aren't injuries from an attack," she said quietly. "They're suffering from what we'd call altitude sickness. Very mild altitude sickness." "Altitude sickness?" "The symptoms they're describing match someone who went from sea level to about 5,000 feet elevation. It's not dangerous to humans, but it seems to be affecting them severely." Ryan thought about this. So they're not used to planets like this? Apparently not. Their biology suggests they come from a world with much lower gravity and thinner atmosphere. What we consider normal is extreme for them. Tony had been listening to the conversation. No wonder they think this is a death world. To them, it probably is. Dr. Carter began treating the Veltar with basic medical care. She gave them oxygen to help with breathing and medicine to reduce their discomfort. The aliens seemed amazed that the humans could help them so easily. "How do you survive on such a world?" Ambassador Zethver asked. "We come from a world very much like this one," Ryan explained. "This feels normal to us." The ambassador's eyes widened in fear. "You come from a death world? What kind of beings are you?" Before Ryan could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The Veltar became panicked. "What's happening?" Tony asked. A Veltar crew member stumbled into the room. "Ship's approaching. Many ships. It's the Korthik swarm. Ambassador Zethver tried to stand, but fell back onto his bed. They have returned to finish us. You must flee, humans. The Korthik are demons. They cannot be stopped. Ryan activated his communicator. Captain Morrison, we have a problem. The Korthik are back. Jake's voice came through the speaker. How? Many ships? Ryan looked at the Veltar sensor readings. Sensors show over 200 vessels approaching. They'll be here in 6 hours. Understood. Begin evacuation immediately. We'll get these people to safety. The Veltar seemed surprised. You will fight the Korthik? Ambassador Zithfer asked. We'll do what we can, Ryan replied. But they are unstoppable. They have conquered dozens of worlds. No one can stand against them. Tony looked at Ryan. They sure seem scared of these Korthik. Dr. Carter finished treating the last Veltar patient. I can move them to our ships, but they'll need special care. They're not built for our environment. As the humans prepared to evacuate the aliens, Ryan wondered what they were getting into. The Veltar seemed terrified of both the planet and the approaching enemy. If these aliens thought a normal world was deadly, what did that say about the rest of the galaxy? And if the Korthik were as dangerous as the Veltar claimed, the human fleet might be in for the fight of their lives. The Korthik swarm dropped out of warp space like a dark cloud. Over 200 ships filled the space around the planet, their hulls painted in red and black. They moved in loose formation, spreading out to surround the human fleet. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching the enemy ships on his screen. His crew worked quietly at their stations, preparing for battle. The 30 human ships looked small compared to the massive alien fleet. Sir, called Lieutenant Ben Hayes from the sensor station, I'm reading over 200 Korthik vessels. They're big, but their weapons look strange. Jake studied the sensor data. Strange how? Their guns are huge, sir. Much bigger than ours. But the energy readings are lower than expected. It's like they're built for show rather than fighting. Admiral Kate Sullivan's voice came through the communication system. All ships. This is Admiral Sullivan. The Korthik are hailing us. The main screen to show a large alien face. The Korthik had gray skin, sharp teeth, and small red eyes. He wore elaborate armor covered in spikes and metal plates. I am Warlord Thrakgor of the Korthik Swarm, the alien announced. You have interfered with our conquest. Surrender now, or be destroyed like all who oppose us. Jake looked at his crew. None of them seemed impressed by the threat. Admiral, request permission to respond. Go ahead, Captain. Jake stepped forward. This is Captain Morrison of the human fleet. We're here on a rescue mission. Release your claim on this system and withdraw. Warlord Thrakgor laughed, showing his sharp teeth. Humans? I have never heard of your species. You have 30 ships. We have over 200. Surrender, or watch your people die. Negative, Jake replied simply. All ships, weapons free. The Korthik leader looked shocked. You dare refuse? No species has ever stood against the Korthik swarm. We are the terror of the galaxy. We'll see about that, Jake said. He turned to his crew. Ryan, take us into their formation. Tony, signal the fleet to attack. The human ships moved forward, accelerating toward the Korthik fleet. Jake watched the enemy vessels on his screen. They were huge and looked dangerous, but they moved slowly and seemed confused by the human tactics. Sir, called Ryan from the tactical station. The Korthik are broadcasting some kind of fear signal. It's supposed to make us panic. Is it working? Jake asked. Not really, sir. It just sounds like noise. The first shots came from the Korthik ships. Bright beams of energy crossed space, lighting up the darkness. The weapons looked impressive, but Jake noticed something odd. They're missing us, Tony observed. Their aim is terrible. Maybe they're not used to fighting ships that fight back. Ryan suggested. The human fleet reached the Korthik formation and opened fire. The smaller human ships moved between the large enemy vessels, using their speed and maneuverability to avoid the clumsy alien weapons. Commander Alex Turner led the human fighters in a series of attacks on the Korthik ships. His voice came through. The communication system. These guys are huge but slow. Their fighters are even worse. They fly like they're in a parade, not a battle. Jake watched as human weapons hit their targets. The Korthik ships had thick armor, but it seemed designed to look frightening rather than provide real protection. Human missiles punched through their defenses easily. "Sir," called Ben from sensors, "the Korthik formation is breaking up. They're not used to enemies that actually fight back." On the screen, Jake could see the truth of this. The Korthik ships were spreading out, trying to avoid the human attacks, but they had no real battle plan. They seemed to expect their enemies to run away in fear. Warlord Thrakor appeared on the screen again. "This is impossible. How are you?" "Not afraid. Our reputation spans the galaxy. We are the unstoppable Korthik." "Maybe you just never fought anyone who knew how to fight," Jake replied. The battle continued for 2 hours. The human ships worked together, supporting each other, and focusing their attacks on individual Korthik vessels. The alien ships, meanwhile, seemed to be fighting alone, each one trying to look as scary as possible. Dr. Carter, who was monitoring the battle from the medical bay, contacted the bridge. "Jake, the Veltar are watching the battle. They can't believe what they're seeing." "What do you mean?" "They keep saying it's impossible. They think the Korthik are unbeatable. But we're winning." Jake looked at the battle display. The human fleet had destroyed or disabled over 50 Korthik ships. The enemy was starting to retreat. "Sir," called Ryan, "the Korthik are pulling back. Some of their ships are leaving the battle." Jake opened a channel to the Korthik fleet. "Warlord Thrakor, this is your last warning. Leave this system now, or we'll destroy your entire fleet." The Korthik leader's face showed confusion and fear. "What are you? How can you defeat us? We have conquered hundreds of worlds." "Maybe. You just picked on the wrong species this time," Jake said. More Korthik ships began to retreat. The ones that stayed seemed confused and disorganized. Some fired wildly at empty space. Others tried to ram the human ships, but moved too slowly to be effective. Colonel Steve Parker, who had been preparing for boarding actions, contacted the bridge. "Sir, if you can disable one of their ships, my Marines can capture it." "We need to learn more about these Korthik." Jake nodded. "Ryan, target the Korthik flagship. Disable their engines, but don't destroy them." The USS Defiance moved toward the enemy flagship. The Korthik ship was huge, covered in spikes and scary decorations. But its weapons were poorly aimed, and its armor was weak in key areas. Human weapons struck the Korthik ship's engines. The enemy vessel stopped moving, floating helplessly in space. "Colonel Parker, the flagship is disabled. Send your Marines." Steve's voice came through the speaker. "On our way, sir." Jake watched as human boarding shuttles approached the Korthik ship. He wondered what they would find inside. The Korthik had seemed scary at first, but their fighting ability was poor. Maybe their reputation was based on fear rather than actual strength. The remaining Korthik ships were retreating now, moving away from the human fleet. Warlord Thrakor's voice came through the communication system one last time. "This is not over, humans. The galaxy will learn of your existence. You have made enemies of the Korthik swarm." "We'll be ready," Jake replied. As the enemy ships disappeared into warp space, Jake looked at his crew. They had won their first battle against an alien species. But something felt wrong about the victory. The Korthik had seemed dangerous, but they fought like they had never faced real opposition. "Sir," called Ben from sensors. "I'm reading something strange from the Korthik ship we captured. The weapons are powerful, but they're not designed for ship-to-ship combat." "What are they designed for?" "It looks like they're made for attacking planets, sir. Specifically, for scaring people into surrendering." Jake began to understand. The Korthik weren't great warriors. They were bullies who attacked weak civilizations and used fear to win battles. They had never faced an enemy that fought back effectively. The implications were disturbing. If the Korthik were considered unstoppable by the galaxy, what did that say about the other species out there? How many civilizations were as fragile as the Veltar? As the human fleet regrouped around the planet, Jake realized that their first contact with galactic civilization had revealed something important. In a galaxy full of peaceful species, humans might be the only ones capable of real warfare. The question was, what would they do with that knowledge? Colonel Steve Parker stepped through the airlock onto the Korthik flagship. The corridors were dark and filled with the smell of fear. His Marines followed behind him, weapons ready. The Korthik ship was huge inside, with high ceilings and wide hallways. "Spread out and secure the ship," Steve ordered. "Watch for traps." The Marines moved through the vessel carefully. They expected heavy resistance, but the Korthik crew seemed to have abandoned most of their posts. Strange sounds echoed through the corridors. Not the sounds of battle, but of panic. "Sir," called Sergeant Tony Garcia through the radio, "I found some Korthik crew members. They're hiding in what looks like a supply closet." Steve made his way to Tony's position. 6 Korthik aliens huddled in a small room, their red eyes wide with fear. They wore the same spiked armor as their leader, but up close it looked cheap and decorative. "Are you going to kill us?" one of them asked in broken English. Steve looked at the cowering aliens. These were supposed to be the terror of the galaxy? "We're not going to hurt you. We just have questions." The Korthik seemed surprised. "Questions? You are not here to torture us?" "No," Steve said. "We want to know about your people. How long? Have you been attacking other species?" The Korthik looked at each other nervously. Finally, one spoke. "We have raided the trade routes for many cycles. It is easy. The other species always run when they see our ships." "They always run?" Steve asked, double quotes. "Yes, they are weak. They surrender when they see our weapons. Sometimes they give us their cargo. Before we even board their ships." Steve frowned. "What about species that fight back?" The Korthik looked confused. "Fight back? No species fights back. They are too afraid. We are the Korthik swarm. We are unstoppable. But you just lost to us." Tony pointed out. The aliens became more agitated. "You are not normal. You are demons from a death world. Nothing else explains how you could defeat us." Steve's radio crackled. "Colonel, this is Dr. Carter. I'm examining the Korthik prisoners we captured. You need to see this." Steve left Tony to watch the prisoners and made his way to the ship's medical bay. Dr. Carter was scanning a wounded Korthik with her medical equipment. "What did you find, Doc?" "These Korthik are not natural warriors," she said. "Look at their bone structure. They're built for intimidation, not combat. Their muscles are designed for show, not strength." Steve examined the unconscious alien. Its arms were large, but looked soft. Its armor was heavy, but provided little real protection. "They're like bodybuilders," Dr. Carter continued. "They look strong, but they're not built for actual fighting." "That explains why they were so easy to defeat," Steve said. Captain Jake. Morrison's voice came through the radio. "Steve, report to the bridge. The Veltar want to speak with you." Steve made his way to the Korthik ship's command center. The bridge was enormous, with a throne-like chair in the center surrounded by dramatic lighting. Everything was designed to look impressive and frightening. Jake appeared on the main screen. "Steve, Ambassador Zephyr wants to know what you found." "There." Veltar's face appeared next to Jake's. The alien looked amazed and terrified. "You boarded their ship and survived?" "It wasn't that hard," Steve replied. "The Korthik aren't very good fighters." "Not good fighters?" The ambassador's voice rose in pitch. "They are the terror of space. They have conquered dozens of worlds." "How did they conquer them?" Steve asked. "THEY. They showed up with their huge fleets and terrible weapons. The civilizations surrendered rather than face destruction." Steve began to understand. So they never actually fought anyone? Of course not. Why would anyone fight the Korthik? It would be suicide. Dr. Carter stepped forward. "Ambassador, what kind of weapons do most species in the galaxy have?" "Weapons? We have some defensive systems, but they are mainly for show. Most civilized species solve conflicts through negotiation." "What about your military?" Steve asked. The Veltar looked confused. "Military? We have security forces for keeping order, but we would never fight a war. Wars are barbaric." Steve looked at Jake on the screen. They were both thinking the same thing. The galaxy was full of peaceful species who had never learned to fight. The Korthik had built their empire on fear and intimidation, never facing real opposition. "Ambassador," Jake said carefully, "what kind of world do the Korthik come from?" "They come from a harsh world with strong gravity and thick atmosphere. It made them stronger than most species. That is why they are so feared." Steve and Jake exchanged glances. The Korthik world sounded like a garden planet compared to Earth. "Sir," called Ryan from the tactical station, "I'm getting reports from the Marine teams throughout the ship. The Korthik weapons are designed for terror, not destruction. They're big and loud, but they're not very effective." Steve nodded. "The crew is the same way. They're trained to look scary, not to fight." Ambassador Zephyr's image flickered as he moved closer to his screen. "You speak as if defeating the Korthik is normal, but they are the strongest species in the galaxy. If you can defeat them so easily, what does that make you?" The question hung in the air. Steve looked around the Korthik bridge with its theatrical decorations and impressive but useless equipment. These aliens had ruled through fear because no one had ever challenged them. "Colonel," came Tony's voice through the radio, "you need to hear this. The Korthik prisoners are talking about other species they've conquered. It's all the same story. They showed up, looked scary, and everyone surrendered." Steve activated his communicator. "Jake, I think we need to have a serious conversation about humanity's place in this galaxy." "Agreed. Finish securing the ship and return to the fleet. We have a lot to discuss." As Steve's Marines completed their search of the Korthik vessel, they found more evidence of the same pattern. The ship was designed to look terrifying, but it was poorly built for actual combat. The crew was trained in intimidation tactics, not warfare. In the ship's records, they found data about dozens of conquered worlds. In every case, the pattern was the same. The Korthik would arrive with their impressive fleet, make threats, and the local species would surrender without a fight. "Sir," Tony reported, "the Korthik have been doing this for over a century. They've never fought a real battle until today." Steve looked out at the stars through the ship's window. Somewhere out there were dozens of civilizations living under Korthik rule, too afraid to fight back against enemies who were actually quite weak. And now humanity had entered this galaxy. Humans who came from a world so harsh that it had forged them into natural warriors. Humans who saw a normal planet as paradise and considered the Korthik's intimidation tactics amusing. The implications were staggering. If the Korthik were the most feared species in the galaxy, and humans had defeated them easily, what did that say about humanity's future among the stars? Steve gathered his Marines and prepared to return to the human fleet. They had captured the Korthik flagship and learned the truth about their enemies. But the real question was what they would do with this knowledge. As they left the alien ship, Steve wondered if humanity was about to become the new terror of the galaxy. The difference was, unlike the Korthik, humans actually knew how to fight. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the main conference room of her flagship, looking at the data her officers had gathered. The truth about the galaxy was spread out on the table in front of her. Maps showing Korthik conquests, recordings of alien surrenders, and medical data about dozens of species. "So let me understand this correctly," she said to the assembled officers. "The Korthik have been terrorizing the galaxy for over a century, and no one has ever fought back?" Captain Jake Morrison nodded. "That's right, Admiral. Every species they encountered surrendered without a battle. They built their empire on fear. Double quotes. Dr. Amy Carter looked up from her tablet. "I've been studying the biological data we captured. Most species in the galaxy evolved on worlds with low gravity, stable weather, and no large predators. They're physically fragile and have no experience with violence." Colonel Steve Parker leaned forward. "The Korthik are stronger than most species, but they're still weak compared to humans. They've never had to actually fight anyone." Kate looked at the star charts showing human territory compared to the rest of the galaxy. "And now we're here. The Veltar are calling us saviors," Jake said. "They can't believe anyone could defeat the Korthik." Through the window, Kate could see the Veltar ships orbiting the planet. The aliens were still too weak to leave their climate-controlled vessels, but they were safe now. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Ben Hayes from the communication station. "We're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Word about the battle is spreading fast." "What kind of transmissions?" "Mixed, sir. Some species are asking for help. Others are demanding we leave their space. A few are trying to negotiate treaties." Kate activated the main screen. Dozens of alien faces appeared, each one different, but all showing the same emotion: fear. "These are the leaders of the major galactic civilizations," Ben explained. "They all want to know what our intentions are." One of the aliens, a blue-skinned being with large eyes, spoke first. "I am President Velmer of the Galactic Peace Council. We have heard reports of a new species that defeated the Korthik swarm. Is this true?" Kate stepped forward. "I am Admiral Sullivan of the Human Federation. We responded to a distress call and defended ourselves when attacked." "Defended yourselves?" Another alien, this one with silver skin and no hair, looked shocked. "You destroyed over 100 Korthik ships." "They attacked us first," Kate replied simply. A third alien, covered in feathers, spoke up. "The Korthik are the strongest species in the galaxy. If you can defeat them, you must be incredibly powerful. What do you want from us?" Kate looked at her officers. This was the question they had been discussing for days. What did humanity want from the galaxy? "We want to help," she said finally. "We came to the stars to explore and make friends. We found a galaxy full of peaceful species being terrorized by bullies. We want to change that." The alien leaders looked at each other nervously. President Velmer spoke again. "You offer to help us against the Korthik, but what do you want in return?" "Nothing," Kate said. "We help because it's the right thing to do." The aliens seemed confused by this answer. They whispered among themselves in their various languages. "Admiral," Jake said quietly, "Ambassador Zephyr wants to speak with you." The Veltar leader's face appeared on a smaller screen. He looked much better now that he was in a controlled environment. "Admiral Sullivan," he said, "my people have decided to offer you a formal alliance. We will share our knowledge of the galaxy if you will protect us from aggressors." Kate nodded. "We accept, Ambassador." The other alien leaders watched this exchange. With interest, President Velmer leaned forward. If the Veltar trust you, perhaps we can discuss terms for a broader agreement. Over the next several hours, Kate and her officers negotiated with representatives from dozens of species. The pattern was always the same. The aliens were desperate for protection, but afraid of humanity's power. We need guarantees, insisted the silver-skinned alien. How do we know you won't become the new Korthik? Kate understood their concern. We'll prove it through our actions. We're not here to conquer anyone. We're here to help. Dr. Carter had been studying the alien biology data during the negotiations. Admiral, I think I understand why the galaxy is so peaceful. Most of these species physically cannot fight. They're too fragile. Violence would destroy them. So they had to develop other ways to solve conflicts, Kate realized. Exactly. But that left them helpless against the Korthik, who were willing to use force. Colonel Parker joined the conversation. Which is where we come in. We can do what they can't, fight back against aggressors. Kate made a decision. Ben, send a message to Earth. Tell them we're establishing a permanent presence in this sector. We're going to need more ships and personnel. What should we call our new mission? Jake asked. Kate looked at the alien faces on the screen, all watching her, with hope and fear. The Human Protection Fleet. Our job is to keep the peaceful species safe from those who would harm them. Ambassador Zethvar's image brightened. You will truly do this? You will stand between us and the darkness? We will, Kate promised. President Velmer seemed to make a decision. Very well. On behalf of the Galactic Peace Council, I formally invite humanity to join our alliance. We will share our knowledge and resources if you will help defend our worlds. Kate smiled. We accept. Over the following days, the human fleet established a base on the Veltar colony world. The planet that had seemed so hostile to the aliens was perfect for humans. They built their headquarters in the same area where the Veltar had nearly died from environmental stress. Jake stood on the observation deck of the new base, watching human engineers work alongside Veltar technicians. The aliens wore special suits to protect them from the harsh environment, while the humans worked in simple uniforms. It's amazing, Ambassador Zethvar said, joining him at the window. You make this death world look like a paradise. It's not a death world to us, Jake replied. It's just home. That is what makes you so special, the ambassador said. You come from a world that would kill most species, but it made you strong. Enough to protect us all. Commander Ryan Brooks, now promoted to captain of his own ship, approached them. Admiral Sullivan wants to see you, Jake. We're getting reports of Korthik attacks on 3 different worlds. They're taking revenge for their defeat. Jake nodded. Time to show them that one defeat wasn't a lucky accident. As the human fleet prepared to leave the Veltar world, Jake looked back at the planet one more time. A few weeks ago, it had been a place of terror for the stranded aliens. Now it was the headquarters of humanity's mission to protect the galaxy. The USS Defiance led the fleet away from the planet, heading toward the first of many battles to come. In the distance, Jake could see other human ships arriving, reinforcements from Earth, carrying more people who had volunteered to serve in the protection fleet. Kate's voice came through the communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan. We came to the stars to explore. We found a galaxy that needed protectors. Today we begin our new mission, to stand between the peaceful species and those who would harm them. Jake smiled as he watched the stars ahead. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as guardians. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and now it was their job to make sure everyone could enjoy those wonders in peace. The age of the Korthik was over. The age of human protection had begun. As the fleet jumped to warp speed, Jake thought about the future. There would be more battles to fight, more species to protect, and more bullies to defeat. But for the first time since leaving Earth, humanity knew exactly what it was meant to do among the stars. They were the guardians of the galaxy, and they were just getting started.